Welcome back to another computer tutorial, and now we're going to talk about connecting three routers using Cisco Packet Tracer. Okay, so we're going to now set up the three routers. Okay, that uses. So we're going to connect three routers where each router is going to be connected to one switch and then two computers. So let's have this one switch and then two computers there and there. And let's do the connections first. So and then this. Remember, we're using the straight to connection because we're connecting it to the switch, and then from switch to router same. But remember, we're going to connect this switch to the fast Ethernet 00. We're not going to use the 01. But if you want to use the 01, it's okay. But you have to remember which ports you used for the connection. Okay. So I've connected it already. Now it's time for me to try to copy and paste it for the three. I'm gonna fill this first here, and then another one for this one here. Okay, so now I'm going to change the label. This is very important. Labeling. So with the labeling, I think I'm just gonna use the labels they have here. So well, we're going to have the one network in this side, two network for this, and the three network for this. So 192.168.1.1. Let's copy it. And then this one is going to be the 1.2. Sorry, 1.2. And for this, I'm sorry, what happened? I was not able to do it properly. This one. Okay, so for this, it's going to be, we're going to use the 10 IP address for the routers. Okay, so it's easy to be identifiable. So 192.168.1.10, but they belong to the one network. Next is for this going to use the two network. So 2.1, and then for this 2.2, and for this is 2.10. 2.10. Okay, and then this is 3.1, and then this is 3.2, and 3.10. Remember, this is just the label, this is not yet the configuration, so don't assume that this is already the IP address. This is just a guide for us to, when we do the configuration, we won't forget, we won't get confused in doing configurations. So this is all set. So remember, we're going to be connecting this router. So basically, this will have another IP address so that we can connect to the other router. So it has to have a common, like a network address. So for this, the network address is going to be, by default, it's going to be 1.0. Okay, so 2.0, 3.0, but you won't see me doing the labeling there because it's not needed anymore. But for this network router to router, we need to really apply it in the configuration. So we won't get confused again. Let's do the labeling. So I'll have this as the so we use the 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna use the 4 network. So 4 This is going to be to 4.10. This is their common line or the network address. And for this also is going to be the 5.10 also. 5.10. It's not their IP address, but it's their common line, okay, or it's like their network address. So we're now going to put the IP address here. So this is going to be the 4 network. The IP address that we assign here is going to be 4 dot something, and then the IP address we're going to assign to connect these two routers is going to be 5 dot something. Okay, so let's have it now. So let's have this 4.1, 4.1, and then for this one we have this as 4.2, 4.2. Okay, so going this connection is going to be the IP address for the serial. We're going to be assigned. Remember, if you can, I'll open it. In the config part, we only have fast Ethernet. We don't have the serial line first. We're going to add that component in a while. Just gonna finish the labeling so that we're done with the labeling, and then we are going to do the configuration already. So now we're done with the 4 for this connection, 4 network. For the 5 network for this line here, we're going to also put 5.1 and 5.2. Okay, 5.1 and 5.2. Okay, so we're done with the labeling. Now we're going to add the components for us to be able to connect this, because you cannot connect this without the serial. It needs a serial because DCE is serial DCE, so that's why we need to add that component. So how do we do that? Again, we did this on the previous activity. So we go to the physical, and then we use this weak 1P. First we have to turn off the router, then add this component. Okay, so and then turn that on, turn that back on. Okay, so for this also we have to do the same thing. Weak 1 or WIC1P, turn that off first, and then there, and then turn that on. Okay, so we're done with this. For this, so for this one, you're going to connect 2 lines, one for this side and then the other for this side. So we cannot use the WIC1P because you only have 1 port. Turn that off first and then turn that on. You only have 1 port. We need 2 ports. We're going to remove that. Wait lang. There. So we're going to remove that and then put the ones with the 2 ports, which is the WIC2P. This one. Okay, if you can see on the picture, it looks like this. So this is the description: dual serial port, 1 card, interface card. Okay, so we're going to add this now, WIC2P, and then turn that on also. So now we can connect 2 lines, one from the left and one from the right. Okay, so it's time to configure this. Okay, so we already have the components needed, so we just have to configure it. So we're going to start configuring with the computers. Okay, we have the guides here because of the labels, desktop, and there. So 1.1 because we're configuring this, and then default gateway is this one, 192.168.1.10. This is the IP address of the router, 1.10. Okay, next, desktop, IP address. This is going to be, what's the IP address? 1.2, and tab and IP address of the default gateway is still 1.10. Okay, and then for this, let's move on. So config IP address is going to be 2.1 now. 2.1 subnet mask, and the default gateway is of course this one, 192.168.2.10. and this one, same process. Sorry, this one. This is going to be 2.2, 2.2, and 2.10, 2.10. Okay, lastly for this one, this is not yet the last actually. Just for the computers. So 3.1, and this IP address of the router 3.10. 3.10. Sorry, it has to be a period, not the comma. And for this computer, it has to be 3.2. 3.2, and IP address of the router, which is 3.10. 3.10. Okay. So it's not yet red because we have not yet turned on the port of the router. Config and then pass Ethernet is not yet turned on, or which is also very important, we have not yet set the IP address for this. So turn that on, then we're going to use this as what we have put in the label. We have to put that there, 192.168.1.10. Okay, we go next. That's why it's red also, because we have not turned that on yet. Pass Ethernet 00 on, and then what's that? It's 192.168.2.10. 2.10. Okay, and finally this one. So again, config pass Ethernet 00, 3.10 on, 3.10, and subnet mask. Okay, let's check connectivity of each computers in the network to the router, and successful. How about this two network? Successful. Lastly, this network, successful, and successful. Okay, we're good to go. Now it's time to connect these. Now we're going to use the DCE. Remember what we used? The serial port now, which is this one, 0001, and then for this one, you see there are two serial ports now. Remember, we configured the 4.2. I'm not sure if we configured it. We did not configure it yet. Okay, but we're going to configure it in a while. So we're going to use the serial 010 for the for this line. Okay, and then for this, now we're going to use the 010, and then connect it here, 010. So it's time to configure the serial port. Going there, and then we click on, remember this is what we're configuring, so we're going to put the IP address for that one. click here, turn that on, and then we're going to use the standard clock rate is 128,000. So IP address, we're going to use this 192.168.4.1. 4.1 and then subnet mask. It's okay now. So that's no problem. No problem with that. Now for this also, we're going to use the 4.2 for 010. Remember, we're going to click this 010, and this is where we're going to connect the 4. That is where we connected this line, this DCE line on the 010, and that is where we're going to assign the 168.4.2. Okay. So on, again, I click this. Don't forget that you have to click this, not this one. This one, okay? This is what we're going to configure. And then on, and then 128,000, and we're going to put now the IP address of 4.2. 4.2 and submit mask. And then, how about this one? We're going to also configure that now. We're going to put an IP address. So we're going to switch to this. Okay. So if you notice on the equivalent iOS commands, it now switched to interface serial 011, which is this 01. So on 128,000 and IP address of this. That is the significance of putting those labels, so it's easy for us to configure also the IP addresses. 5.1 and then here, there. So it's okay already, it's now set. And then lastly is for this, we have to put the IP address also. So again, this is serial port, serial 010 on 128,000, and then this IP address 192.168.5.2 subnet mask. Let me check the other ports that we use if it's on already. Yes. How about this? Serial is on. Yes, we have configured it. 5.1 and 4.2 for the fast Ethernet, it's on also. Very good. And then for this serial 0, it's on 4.1.255, and the fast Ethernet is also working. It's turned on. It's 1.10. Okay, so we have configured the IP addresses and we have connected the lines. Now it's time for us to configure the route. Okay, the route. So we have to do that in the CLI of the routers. So let's start here. So this is now selected. You have to click on the serial port which we need to configure, so that you will see that it is already switched to serial port here. So CLI. And then now we're going to type of course, we're going to change the mode in the router, the CLI of the router, because presently we're in the config if mode. We have to be in the config, okay, config only mode. So we type the exit. We exit from this mode. So you now see the config mode only. Okay, so it's time for us to type the command, which is IP route. You can use capital letters or small letters, it doesn't matter. The iOS command line interface will be able to recognize your command either way. So route, and then the default route, which is the 0.0, there are 4 zeros, and then space from source to destination 0.0.0.004, and then now is the common line, which is this one. That is why I placed it here, so that you will not forget that we're going to use this common IP address or common line, or it's like it acts as network, no, network address. So 4.10, so 192.168.4.10. Okay, again, we use this so that when we configure this is what we're going to put, and if we configure this also, this is what we're also going to put on the command line. Okay, so IP route 0040 space 40, and then this IP address 192.168.4.10, and then press enter. There you go. Exit. It's time to move on to the other router. Same, we're going to do the same, but now remember we have two serial ports. You have to remember which port you use to connect and the IP address. Okay, so for the 4.2, to click on it, you have this here, so that this is what we're working on. So if you notice, when we click the 0.0 serial 010, this is what appeared, and this is what appears on the iOS equivalent iOS commands, because this is in the CLI. Okay, so if you do purely CLI, this is the command that you need to issue, so that you'll be able to access the serial 010. Now going back to what we used to do on the previous router, we're going to do the same here. So exit, so that we can get rid of the config if mode and enter into the config mode only, and then time to issue the command IP route IP route, and then again the 40.0.0.0 space, then add the 40. So there are 4 zeros, and then remember our command line for the 4.2 and the 4.1 is the 4.10. That is what we're going to type here, 192.168.4.10. Okay, IP route 40 space 40 192.168.4.10, because this is our common line for this connection for the two routers. Press enter, and then there you go, exit. Okay, now we're done with the first serial. Remember there are two serial ports connected here, so we're going to configure also the other side, this one. So going back to the physical, config, we're going to select now the other serial port, which is, notice what happens on the equivalent iOS commands. Click on it. So we exited from the if, and then interface serial 011 now. So this is what we're working on. So it's time to, we selected this. Okay, don't forget to click this before going to the CLI, because we switched to another interface, which is the serial port 011. CLI, again we do the same, we exit so that we get out of the config if mode and enter into the config mode. I'm just gonna issue the previous commands here. There. Okay, so IP route 000, but this time it's not gonna be 192.168.4.10, because we're going to use, this is the IP address that we use for this serial port, so this is the command line for them. So this is going to be 5.10 there. So 168.5.10. Okay. So again, IP route 0040 space 40, and then this command line 192.168.5.10. Press enter, and then we're good to go. So we're done now with the two serial ports, serial 00 and serial 011. Okay, so last is for this router. Same process. We will not have any issues here because we only have one serial port. Okay, so CLI, so 5.2. Okay, we're using the 5.2, 5.2. Okay, so CLI, again, we exit, get out of the config if mode, and then enter config mode, then issue the command itroute 0.0.0.0 space 0.0.0.0 and then space. Next is again, we're going to use the common IP address, which is the 192.168.5.10, because this is what we're working on. Okay, so what we're working on, because we're on the 5.2, so is the 192.168.5.10, 192.168.5.10. Okay, let's double check. IP route 40 space 40 and then 192.168.5.10 and press enter, exit, and we're done with the configuration. Hope everything works fine. So let's exit. It's now time to test, okay, our configurations. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's see. So from this to this, in progress. Give it some time. It still failed. Okay, just wait. How about this? Successful. If you click this from the computer, that means you have established a connection here already. Let's try to do that again, here to here. It has to be successful. Yes, successful, in progress. Wait, successful now. Again, let's do it again. Very successful. How about this to this? Successful. This to this. Successful and successful also. How about from one end to another? This one to this one here. Yes. And that's it. We were able to connect 3 routers now with this kind of configuration. Okay, so successful in all our configurations. Remember always to as you do this kind of activity, it's best that it's a really good practice if you put the labels first before configuration. Okay, so hope you learned something out of this tutorial, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and may God bless you and have a nice day. Bye.